Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more presentation of the book that you are studying in the realms of mediumship. Esteban will not be with us in the beginning. Maybe he will be with us at the end of our presentation. So let's start with our initial prayer. So let's raise our thoughts to God and thank Him for this opportunity of this incarnation that we have, and this opportunity to know a little more about the meaning of our lives, and to study the Spiritism, where we can understand better where we came from, where we are going to, and what we are doing here on earth. And let's also thank Jesus for this new opportunity to be reunited here in His name, and may the spiritual benefactors um, give us the support necessary to understand what we are going to see today. So be it. So last month we started the study of this book, which is about mediumship in the realms of mediumship. Uh, as I explained in that occasion, this is a book psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier. The picture, his picture is here on this slide, and he is the most famous, was the most famous medium in Brazil, Brazilian medium. And the book was dictated by the spirit of André Luiz. So let's a little bit remember what is the context of the book, okay? Uh, the spirit André Luiz, in a series of books, about 15 books, he grants us a narrative of his experience as a discarnated spirit, right? In the spiritual realm. So it's a description of someone which is looking to in this case, the mediumship phenomenon from the spiritual realm point of view. So that is something interesting because it's not from our point of view, but from this spiritual realm point of view. And he and his friend Hilario, both are spirits, they are studying mediumship under the supervision of this spirit also called, named Assistant Aulus. And Aulus has invited them to observe the activities in a spirit center on the terrestrial planes, the sphere. Right? So they are from the spiritual realm, but they are studying mediumship in a spirit center here on Earth. And there they met Clementino, who is the spirit director of that spirit center, and Raul Silva, who is the incarnate director. So you see that you have the incarnate director of this center, the spirit center, and also a spiritual director, right? And there they also met the mediums, the incarnate, or they are all incarnate, Celina, Eugenia, and Antonio Castro. And in last month, we saw some of these some of his narratives about what happened until some point of this activity, right? This observation from André Luiz. And remember that the last thing that we saw last month was when they were helping a guy, incarnate guy named Pedro, right? Who have epilepsy. And then Pedro was supported by the people there from the spirit center, and then the spiritual activities continue, right? So normally this happens at night here on Earth, And then that's why Andrea Luis says that they returned to the main room because they had put Pedro in a separate room to help him, and then they are now returning to the main room where there are the other people, right, who went there to the spirit center, look for assistance. And Clementino, who is the spiritual mentor, led them to a young woman who, accompanied by her husband, which is his spouse, was receiving assistance that evening. So there was this incarnate young woman there looking for help, right? Uh, and then all explained that they were united in a redemptive trial. So that's what we are going to understand, right? Why they are in such situation. And then at the proper moment, the spirit guards from the spiritist center, they allow their deranged discarnate spirits to enter the room. Right? So such spirit, in this case, is closely connected to the woman. Right? So that's why Andrea Luis says that he lunged at the woman, and she began to scream, transfigured. She tried to speak, but her voice was an unpleasant whistle, right? So she could not speak. And then Hao, which is the incarnate director, approached the couple and applies magnetic energies to the medium's chest areas. Mediums in here is the young woman, right? Although she was someone who was being assisted in the spirit center, she was also a medium, right? Because as we know, we are in general we are all mediums. And then she can she could speak, right, and she then managed to speak in hoarse shouts. Monstrous daughter, you are a criminal. I will never forgive you. So look at what is interesting here, because the young woman is saying such words, and but the it is the spirit that is speaking through her, right? And what is interesting here is that this spirit is referring to herself, right? So through her voice, the spirit is speaking and is accusing the woman, right? The young woman. That's why he says monstrous daughter, right? So meaning that in a previous life, uh, that young woman was daughter of the spirit which is communicating here, right? And he is accusing her to be a criminal, and that he will never forgive her, right? So and then how tries to renew the tormentor's attitude, the obsessor's attitude, the spirit, by speaking to him about the value of forgiveness, understanding, and love, right? And then Hilario, the friend of Andrea Luis, commented here. He says we can see that is our sister herself who is speaking and waving her arms, right? Because she was speaking and waving her arms, and we know that it wasn't her, right? It was the spirit, uh, this carnate spirit. And then Aulus answers, right? Yes, but she's connected to her spirit companion, brain to brain. So the spirit was tightly connected to the discarnate spirit who was her father in a previous life, was tightly connected to her brain, and through such connection he could express himself, right, in the way that we saw here. So that's what's happening here. So what is interesting here is that we have a situation where it's not a medium which uh, works at the spirit center who is manifesting, right, his mediumship, but it is the person who went to be assisted in the spirit center who is manifesting mediumship here. And Aulus proceeded by explaining, right, the situation. He said, well, she, the young woman, is from a prominent background, and in this present life, he acquired a good cultural education, but her behavior was always been shocking, meaning that she has a lot of psychic problems, right? So, and then Allo says that soon after her marriage, she got pregnant and was going to receive the persecutor into her material arms. So, meaning here that the spirit that was her father in the previous life would come and to be now to be her son, right? So uh, that's why Paul says that she was going to receive the persecutor into her maternal arm, but recoiled in irrepressible fear. She rebelliously and violently caused a miscarriage, right? So a kind of a spontaneous abortion, and so she frustrated, right, the opportunity that the spirit of her father in the previous life would have to come and have a new incarnation, right, and as her son, and for sure to to come closer together, right? To replace the hate between them by love. And then, but as he caused the miscarriage, the frustration was the breach that gave her invisible enemy, the obsessor, a more extensive influence upon her. Right? So that's why he's closely, tightly connected to brain with her. And then Aulus indicating the couple, he says, well, now uh, Aulus just explained the situation of such a woman and her obsessor now in this present life. Now Aulus is going to explain the origin of the situation, right? He is going to talk now about their previous lives. So that's why he says, starting by saying, in the past, the current husband was a harmful companion, more interested on her wealth than on her happiness. So, and then her father at that previous life, by noticing that such a man was only interested on her wealth, the father opposed to the relationship and planning to change his will, his testament, and of course to exclude her right from the testament. And then the guy induced her to poisoning her own father, right? So that's what happened in the previous life, right? In the life before. And then after the father dies, then they marry, and then Aul said that it wasn't long before her husband revealed himself to be a compulsive gambler and confessed the liberty. Right? So, and her discarnate father attached himself to her with a burning desire for revenge, right? Subjecting her to horrible inner torment. So that's the whole situation here, right? They have a problem that comes to the past from the previous life, and they had the opportunity to amend things in this current life by her receiving her own father as his son in this current life, but as he denied that, and then the problem continues, right? And then, and what about the husband, right? The husband now he doesn't have the well the thought that he had in the past, right? So, but he has his own debt to pay to his sick wife, Paul says, right? And then he explained that divine power, God doesn't place at one another's side without a just cause, meaning that uh, every person that is around us, even on our family, on work, or on social life, they are not with us just by chance, right? So there is a cause, and that's why Allah says in marriage, at home or at work, we are sought we are sought out through our affinities in order to satisfy the imperatives of the law of love, right? So because she had with this a bond of hate with her father in the past. Now she would satisfy the imperatives of the law of love that she denied, right, by provoking the miscarriage. So that's the whole problem here. And but then, by going to the spirit center, meeting by meeting, the trio of souls will renew themselves bit by bit. So the younger woman, her husband, going there, and they will listening about the gospel, about the forgiveness, right? And then she will uh, change. They will change their mind bit by bit, and the same will happen to the obsessor, right? The guy, the spirit who was her father in the past. Um, because, as I said in the last month, in the spirit center, we don't just assist the incarnate people, right? But we also assist the discarnate people. Right? Both are welcome in the spirit center. Both are assisted by workers of the spirit center. And then at this point, Andre says, the obsessor was removed from the psychic environment of the young woman, and she returned to normal. Right. So this just to understand, right? Why are the causes, right? By many dramas that we can see nowadays, right? So everything has a cause, right? Nothing happens by chance, right? So that's what's being explained here. Then the next situation there, after that situation is let's say closed by that night, Clementino, the spirit director, called then Aulus and Luis and Hilario to help with another case. So now it was the medium, Antonio Castro's turn, right? So Antonio Castro, the incarnate medium, would work now, right? So then we'll see what he would have to do. And then Andrea Luis says that Clementino approached the Antonio and began applying longitudinal passes, right? Passes here from up to down, right? So and then Antonio fell asleep, right? And then an abundance of a whitish mist emanated from the medium's chest area, right? So kind of a white cloud, let's say, right? So accumulating to the left of his dense body, right? So accumulated here, then that whitish mist outside of his dense body, although bound to his physical body through the aeriform cord, and this white mist actually is Antonio's perispirit, right? So and then his perispirit took he on his normal appearance. So it's interesting because we here in the incarnate in the spirit center, we only see the medium, right? And then we from the spiritual realm point of view, he sees the physical body of the medium, and he also sees the perispirit of the medium, uh, aside to his physical body, linked it to with the aeriform cord, right? Uh, the perispirit of an incarnate being is always connected to the physical body by such a fluidic cord, right? Such cord is only cut when the person dies. So, meaning that this is that's why the title here is an out of body task. So, Antonio was going to perform a task out of his physical body, meaning that he would do that with his spiritual body, right? With his perispirit. And then two assistant spirit, discarnate spirit, placed the helmet over his head in the form of a blinder. So something that could avoid Antonio to see things around him, right? So it's not that it was completely blind, right? But something that was put in his hand, Aulus explains, because he was going for a trip, and for such trip he should not get distracted by what he was uh, looking right through this trip. That's why they put the helmet. And then soon after that, he was rising in space, holding the hands of both assistants, volatility an oblique angle. So here is also another interesting thing, right? Because the spiritual body is a subtle body, a fluidic body. So it can raise up into the air. Right? And the person, if he is prepared for that, he can volitate, right? He can fly with his spiritual body because it's much lighter than the air, right? So that's why they do, right? So Antonio Castro holding with each hand holding by one assistant from one side, another assistant from one side, who were actually guiding him. They were going from the earth, the terrestrial sphere to the spiritual realm. So that's why they were voltating, right? Actually, they were going to let's say to a to a spiritual city, right, which is above the Earth surface, right? Like in Nos Solar, for example, which is the name our home, which is the name where of the city where Andrea Luis lives. It is above the Earth's surface, right? So then they start. Antonio Castro started to speak through his physical mouth. Well, so meaning that he was going volatilizing, going to the spiritual city, but remember that was connected to his physical body with the fluidic cord, and through that he could manifest in his physical body and talk here, right? So then we incarnated people, if we were there at the spirit center, we would listen to the medium speaking, right? So, but he was far away from his physical body. Right? He was going to to the spiritual city, and then he said, "Well, we are going through a dark and narrow path. I'm very afraid. I want to go back. I can't go. Can't go on." So you see that he was with a helmet over his head, but it doesn't mean that he couldn't see anything, right? Something he could see, and that frightened him, right? And then he just want to go back. It's like when we are sleeping, then we have a nightmare, right? We, we make a great effort to return to our physical body. So that's a similar situation here. And then how the incarnate director make a prayer here to help Antonio. And then such prayer, which is prayer, we say is a thought, right? With the good vibrations that reach Antonio. Then he feels much better. That's why he said, well, yes, my friends, your prayer is acting on me like a shower of light. I feel comforted, so I can go on, right? So, and then he said, "What a relief! The stars are shining again." So, meaning that we went through some part above the Earth's surface, which was dark and something that frightened him. But after that part of the journey, uh, a, a little bit more above, he said, "Well, the sky become clear again, so he can see the stars." And then he said, "Wow, it's a city of light." So he's approaching the spiritual city, right? And we are entering a large park there on the spiritual city. And they said, "Oh my God, who is that smiling at me? It's Oliveira. Oliveira is a man, right? Who was a worker at the Spirit Center, who had passed away some days ago, and he was in the spiritual that spiritual city, and Antonio was sent there to meet him, right? So he says, "What bliss, my friend! I've missed you so much," because they were colleagues here as workers in the Spirit Center. And Antonio says, "The memory of your love is alive and well at our Spirit Center. Please come to us." And then I'll explain what was happening. Oliveira was a selfless worker at the Spirit Center and had discarnated a few days ago. With the consent of the spiritual guides, Antonio has been taken to him to transmit the group's affectionate greetings, meaning that, well, of course, they were praying for Oliveira since he died. But then, with this journey from Antonio, he was greeting personally, right? Transmit personally the greeting from the colleagues that remained here on Earth. And then Antonio said, "Embrace me, yes, dear friend. I'm ready. I will communicate to them whatever you want to say. Speak and I'll repeat it." So this is a situation of a psychophone, right? Oliveira, the spirit guy, will going to transmit his message through Antonio, right? So he will say to Antonio what he wants to transmit, and then Antonio, in control over his physical body here on Earth, will speak the message from Oliveira. So that is a psychophonic phenomenon. Okay. Then Antonio here looking for here to his physical body here on the Spirit Center, and then Luis says that Antonio's facial expression changed and began speaking to the group. Well, it's not Antonio that's speaking, right? It's Oliveira through Antonio. And then Oliveira, actually Oliveira says, "Dear friends, may the Lord repay you. I'm doing fine, but I'm still convalescing. I'm in the grand home, the spiritual city, assisted by unforgettable and sublime affections, because when we pass away, we are received well by our families or friends who went before us, right? So that's why he says that. And also he thanks to the prayers of the group. The prayers of our group reach me every evening as a projection of flowers and blessings. And then he ended up by saying, "My friends, charity is the great path. Let us work. May Jesus bless us." So this is the message, right? So this was the Antonio's task, the medium of Antonio on that night, right? To meet a former colleague from the Spirit Center and transmit the message from him to his colleagues, right, on the Spirit Center. Very interesting situation. Uh, so after the the communication, then Antonio voices here on Earth on his physical body went silent. And a few minutes later, they saw Antonio returning to the meeting, helped by the two assistants. So Antonio, with his spiritual body, perispirit, returned from the spiritual city to the spiritual center, right? Helped with the two assistants. And then he returned to his physical body, right? So that is the outer body task that he accomplished that night, and through it they had received a valuable lesson, Andrea Luis says. Now, let's see the next event there at night on that Spirit Center. It's a phenomenon of clairvoyance and clairaudience. Clairvoyance is the faculty where the medium can see spirits, discarnate spirits. And the clairaudience is the faculty where the medium can hear voices from the spirit, discarnate spirit, right? So uh, let's say to practice the faculty of clairvoyance and clairaudience, Raul, the spirit director, asked the three mediums, Selena, Eugenia, and Antonio, incarnate, to watch and listen carefully for any instructions that might be ministered at that moment, right? So they are going, they were going to concentrate and see what they could see and what they could listen, right? And then Clementino, the spiritual director, began to speak in a clear, slow voice, right? So Clementino is there with his spiritual body because he's a discarnate being, and he is speaking, right, from the spiritual realm, right? Meaning that the person, the person there at the spirit center who were not medium with clairvoyance or clairaudience faculty, could not see or hear what Jim, right? And then André Luis says, well, uh, Selina, who was the most prepared medium, registered his words, Clementine words, precisely, clearly. Here is but is not bit, but he registered Clementine words precisely, clearly, as well as his smallest movements. So Selina could see Clementino every movement that he took, and she also could hear clearly what he was saying. Right? Clementine is a discarnate director, right, from the Spirit Center. Eugenia, who was not well prepared as Selena, assimilated the words intuitively, so she was not hearing clearly, right? So intuitively she was assimilating and noted the proximity of Clementino less clearly than Selena, right? And Antonio uh, had a good clairvoyance faculty, so he could see Clementino clearly, but the clairaudience faculty was not that good in Antonio, right? So he seemed to be aloof to the instructor influence. So actually, he could not listen, right, to what Clementine was saying. So that's here what Andrea Luis is trying to show us is that the faculty, mediumship faculties varies between mediums, right? So some mediums, as the more the medium is prepared, the more clearly in this case he or she can see or listen, right, to the spirit. And the less he is prepared, the less he can do it. So that's the situation here. And then after that, the meeting at that night in the Spirit Center was going to the end, right? So after that, Clementino raised his arm in a posture of a prayer, the Spirit Director, right? Then his hand began radiating a prodigious fount of light, that we said, right? That reached them, uh, either incarnate or discarnate, right? And those minutes of vibration, he says, and then he says, represent the precious fountainhead of restorative energies. Right? So it's the passive that we receive at the Spirit Center. We restore our energies, our spiritual energies. And after that, the group will remain quietly, waiting for the manifestation of any of the center's spirit guides. Because normally in the Spirit Center, at the end of the work, we receive messages from the spiritual mentors of the center, right? So this is the situation here. So it's practically in the end of the session of that night. And then Selina, as a medium, prepared herself to transmit the words of the benefactor, right? So to her incarnate colleagues on the Spirit Center. And also the person who went there to be assisted also is participating in this, right? And then the benefactor began to speak through her, right? So it's the same situation with the spirit, the benefactor transmitted his thought to Selena, and Selena transmitted through her physical body, right, by speaking. So it's a psychophony phenomenon here also. And the benefactor says, right? We here in Carnegie, we see Selena speaking, but it's not her that is speaking. It is the mentor, right? The benefactor. And he says, dear friend, with regard to mediumship, he's going to give a fast lesson here about the mediumship. With regard to mediumship, let us not overlook our thoughts. The soul lives where the mind is. So take care of your thoughts, right? He's saying here. We will progress at the influx of our own creations, of our own thought, right? Wherever they might be. And it's necessary to assess the direction of our lives in order to avoid the clouds of disturbance and the pain of remorse. Meaning that if we direct our thoughts to evil things, we will let's say, build clouds of disturbance, right? If we direct our thoughts to good things, then the opposite will occur. And also, by through our thoughts, good or bad, we connect ourselves with those spirits that have the same, let's say, vibration, right? So that's why the benefactor says that torment the mediumship, which is the case of that young woman. Torment the mediumship is nothing more than the intervening of souls compromised in afflictive trials. So what's the situation for that woman, right? It was closely connected to her father in her previous life, and from that we had that torment in mediumship. Right? So to shorten the torment, he says, mental renewal is indispensable. Right? We must change our mind, and it's crucial for those who have the psychic faculties to educate themselves and selflessly serve their neighbor. So we must direct our thought, or or our words and our actions to do good, right? At the end of the day, is only this. And then he says, love and wisdom are the wings that will launch our definitive flight toward perfect communion with the Heavenly Father. So everything started with our thought, right? In our mind. And then the medium's voice, Selena voice, becomes still, meaning that the communication was over, right? So then Raul Silva, the incarnate director, said a short prayer to close the meeting. Andrea Luigi Lari and Aulus said Clementinos, the spirit director, goodbye. And then Clementinos says to him, right, come back anytime. Right? He invited them graciously, Andrea Luigi says. Right? So at that night, so the work at the Spirit Center was over. So, and what happened on that night was what we uh, saw last month, and now, right? So this is the work of one night at the Spirit Center. We will have a new situation throughout the book, right? And there will be another nights where they will go into the Spirit Center and have a new situation there, right? And he will describe it to us. And then when they were leaving the Spirit Center, what happened? So the task at the Spirit Center was over. The current being the current people was went home, and the spirits also was leaving the Spirit Center. But then Andrea Luis says, Selena's discarnate husband, Selena is the medium, right? The incarnate medium. And her husband was discarnate. And he approached them. And Aulus introduced him to Andrea Luis and Hilario. Well, this is our brother Abelardo Martins, right? His name. And then Abelardo says, my dear assistant, I have come to ask for help for Liborio. His wife doesn't leave him alone. So Liborio was the first spirit that he communicated that evening, following the request for help from Sarah, his incarnate wife, right? So it was the first communication that we saw last month. I presented last month uh, uh, here. And then during his physical life, Abelardo was temperamental, but after that, he changed his mind and was admitted to an assistance organization in the spiritual realm, and where Liborio was located, the spirit that communicated himself at night, right? That night in the spirit center. And Abelardo is concerned about Liborio because he's in a kind of a close connection with his incarnate wife, and there we have a kind of a obsession problem also, right? So that's what we are going to see here. And then they brought they come to that organization where Abelardo was working, and they bring Liborius to Selena's home. So Selena's home here on Earth, because she would help her as soon as he disengaged from her body through sleep. So what we are seeing here, is that a medium, a medium does not work only when he is awake and working at the spirit center, but during the night when the medium is sleeping, uh, her she with her spiritual body disengaged from her physical body, who stays there sleeping on the back, and she works during the night also, because the physical body must rest, right, from the day-to-day work, but the spirit does not need any rest. So this is what will happen here. So Selena would sleep, he would disengage from her physical body to sleep, and then she would help in this case here, right, to help Liborio. Uh, and then, so they were facing a case of this reciprocal persecution, reciprocal obsession in this case, right, between Liborio, discarnate husband, and his wife Sarah, incarnate, right? So then suddenly they were there on Selena's home at night, let's say at 1 or 2 a.m. at night. Everybody was sleeping at that moment. And then suddenly Liborio's wife, disengaged from her sleeping physical body, appeared there. And she complains fiercely, Liborio, Liborio, why did you leave? Don't abandon me. Let's go home. Listen to me. Well, so she was asking him to return home, but she couldn't, right? Because he couldn't, right? Because he had already passed away. So this is the kind of we see here that the obsession is not something that comes from the discarnate spirit to an incarnate spirit. We also have obsession from an incarnate person to a discarnate person. You see, for example, for example, if we lose a loved one, right, from our family, and then we are always complaining, well, why he or she, went away. I want him or her back, and then we cry, we desperately crying. So actually, we instead of helping the spirit that went to the spirit realm, we are making we are harming them, right? Because we are getting them disturbed. So this is a kind of a obsession from an incarnate to a discarnate person. That's happening here, huh? From Sarah, who is the incarnate wife, asking for Liborio, the discarnate husband, right? So then Aulo explained that she had asked for help, and she had gone to the spirit center asking for help. And that's why Liborio communicates there, right? So, but deep down, Aulo says, she fed on the sick emanations of her discarnate companion, discarnate husband, right? So she was tightly connected emotionally to her husband, and that harming him rather than helping him. Right? So that's the problem here. And then when the troubled visitor, the Sarah, disengaged from her physical body, saw Selena there, also disengaged from her physical body, she started to scream in rage, right? So who is this woman? Tell me, tell me. I always tried to calm her down, explaining that the Libori was exhausted. So what happened here? When Sarah saw Selena, he thought Selena was a case of a Libori, right? So that's why he blinded with the jealousy. She shouted bitter words to Liborio and dashed out of the room. So what is the situation, interesting situation here? Uh, Liborio, of course, was upset by the occurrence, and always applied some pacifism to calm him down. So what is interesting here is that scene of jealousy from Sarah, who went away uh, back to her physical body, sleeping there on her home, would give a moment of a relief, right? Where Aulus and all the Andrea Luis could help Liborio, because for some moments Sarah was so angry that she would not think about Liborio, right? So that's why Aulus explained that the visitors, despite Sarah's despite at finding Selina next to Liborio, gave them an invaluable reprieve because then they would have a bit of time to better help Liborio. So that's the interesting situation here, right? So that's the help in the spiritual service, which is the title of this slide here. And then Hilario pounded the health astonished. Well, what amazes me is that wherever we may be, service never ends. In wakefulness and in sleep, in life and in death, right? So meaning that Selena, for example, right? She worked there on the spirit center. We saw today, no, that she received the mentor's message, and last month we also saw Selena working there as a medium at the spirit center. And then after the session at the spirit center is over, she goes home, she sleeps, and then she, with her spiritual body, disengaged from her spiritual body and continues working. So that's what happened here. So that's why Hilario is amazed, right? Well, whether we are awake or sleeping, we are always working. Service is never ending, right? He says, and also in life and in death, right? Because Andrea Luis, Aulos, Hilario, they're all discarnate beings, right? Clementino are all discarnate, and they are working. Right? From our point of view, they are dead person. From the spiritual realm point of view, they are well alive and working a lot, right? So that's what is interesting to have in mind. We don't have a task here on Earth, but when we go to the spiritual realm, there we work, we study, we have a let's say uh, we have a social life there in the spiritual city where we go. So it's just a change of let's say dimension, right? Because life continues forever. The spirits are immortal. So that's what we learn from this narrative from Angelis. Right? So, so that's why all of you replied, well, yes, inertia is simply an illusion, and idleness is an escape that the law punishes with afflictions from the past. So if we are working, well, most probably all of us have such problem from the past, right? But the important thing is what we are doing today, right? If we are working for good, uh, then that's a way of, let's say, paying our debt from the past, right? Uh, by the other hand, if you are staying in idleness, then what Allah said here, the law, divine law, punish us with affliction from the past, because if I did many evil deeds on the past, if I replace now with the good deeds, that's okay. But if I stay idle, then that bad evil deeds from the past will come as an affliction. So that's what's being said here, right? So, but for that night, finally, their task was now completely on Selina's home, and then it was time to leave. They say, right? And that we say. Paulus promised the André, Luis, and Hilario to meet them next evening to continue their observation. So, meaning that we'll see next month, right? In the next evening, they will go to another spirit center to observe the mediumship phenomenon there, right? And then André Luis will describe us, and more importantly, they will explain us how the phenomena occurs, right? And looking from the spiritual realm point of view. So with this, we close the presentation for today, and we went through five chapters of this book, right? So chapter 10, tormented somnambulism, which is with that young woman. Uh, chapter 11, out of a body task with Antonio Castro, the medium. Chapter 12, clairvoyance and clairaudience, which was a kind of a testing of the such faculties from the three mediums, Selena, Eugenia, and Antonio Castro. Chapter 13, Thought and Mediumship, was the message from the benefactor, right? Talking about the importance of our thought. And chapter 14 is just, we have just seen, right? Which was the help to Liborio, the spirit of Liborio, that was done at Selina's home, not on the spirit center anymore, but in Selina's home. So that we had for today. And the next month we will proceed with more, some 4 or 5 chapters of this book. So let's then finalize our meeting today with our final prayer, and then let's thank all the spiritual benefactors. We see them, how 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 lots of work they accomplish there on the spiritual realm to help us in kind, right? We can see in this book through Clementino, Andrea Luis, Aulus, and all these spiritual guys who are working hard to help us. So let's thank them for the help that they provide us um, at all times. That help is also provided by our family uh, being spirits, by our protector spirit, and all our friends, right? So let's also thank Jesus for this opportunity to be reunited here in His name again. And finally, let's thank God for the opportunity of this life. So be it. So see you next month. Bye. I think Stem is still on the another appointment, and he will, as soon as he can, he will close the presentation here. Okay. So bye everybody.